Hi there. In recent weeks, you may have heard some headlines in the news about this new artificial intelligence tool called ChatGPT. Now, in case you're not familiar with it, basically what this tool does, it's like a chatbot. You can talk to it, ask it questions, and it'll respond to you in normal human language. But what makes this chatbot a bit different than the other ones you may have experienced in the past is it's the smartest chatbot you've ever talked to before. Not only can we use ChatGPT for asking questions like we do on Google, it is so much more advanced than that. We can actually use it to research things as well as write things for us. There's so many people right now in the tech world using ChatGPT for writing performance reviews, or even in schools and colleges, people are using it to do their homework and their writing assignments. In fact, the New York public school system had to ban ChatGPT from their networks because they don't want people cheating on their assignments. So with all this hype happening right now about ChatGPT, I decided to give it a try a couple weeks ago, and just as I expected, I was blown away at the things you can do with it. But one thing that most people aren't talking about is actually using ChatGPT from the perspective of a bookworm. Yes, you can use it for writing, but it's just as powerful for bookworms who like to read books. In fact, I was so blown away by ChatGPT and how we can use it to become a better bookworm and how to use it as a reading companion that I decided to write an entire book about this topic. It's a really short book. It only takes 30 minutes to read the whole thing, but it is jam-packed with examples of how to use this new artificial intelligence tool to really level up your reading game in 2023. I'll leave a link down below if you are interested in checking out the book, but in this video, I'll be doing a high-level overview of the things I talk about in that book. Basically, what it comes down to is there's 3 different ways we can use ChatGPT to become a better bookworm. The first way is by using it to summarize books. The second way is by using it to find new books to read. And the third way is actually using it to improve our comprehension of the books that we're reading. Now, before we jump into the examples in this video, there are a few really important disclaimers that I have to make. The first one is this tool is made by a company called OpenAI, and it's completely free to use as of right now, and anyone can do it. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can make an account and start playing around with it. There are some disclaimers that you want to read about privacy, so make sure you check those off before you start typing things in. Never share any confidential information with this tool. The second disclaimer that I have is be sure to fact check any information that you get out of ChatGPT. This is because there's definitely going to be some bias and inaccuracies in the information. It may sound very convincing, but again, it's just a new technology, so do not take anything from this tool as factual information. Always fact check everything. The third disclaimer I have is the information available in ChatGPT is only available up until the year 2021. Basically, it has no knowledge of any books or events that have happened after that year, so you'll have to be researching material that is prior to 2021. Now, my last disclaimer is probably the most important one. ChatGPT is not a replacement for actually reading a book. You're going to see through the examples that I show you that technically speaking, you can use this tool to get all the information you need about a book without even picking it up and opening up a page. But that defeats the whole point of reading. Reading is supposed to be a mindful and present activity. You're not going to get that with ChatGPT. This is meant to be a companion and an extension of reading a book, not a replacement. All right, let me show you the first thing you can do with ChatGPT, and that's actually using it as a tool for summarizing information inside of books. Now, I have a very complicated history with reading book summaries. When I was in high school and college, I really did not like to read books, so I would do anything I could to find book summaries on the internet and just read those instead of actually reading the book. Now, as I've gotten older and I really do appreciate the habit of reading a book and finding books that I actually enjoy to read, I don't read book summaries because I find them to be almost like a cheat code for reading the book. So I'm the exact opposite of what I used to be. Ever since I started using ChatGPT, I realized that book summaries can actually be very helpful for deciding when to buy a book or even trying to remember information that you read in a book a long time ago. The other thing about using this specific tool is that it talks to you as if you're having a conversation. It's not like you're reading a website that has a book summary on it. You're actually asking specific questions to ChatGPT and getting very natural responses, so it feels much more conversational and much less like a cheat code. Let me give you an example. Let's actually ask ChatGPT for a book summary for the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. This is actually one of the first books that I've read, and when you ask ChatGPT for a summary, it goes right into it and it knows exactly what you're talking about. This can be really useful if you want to just get the highlights of a book before you decide to buy it, or if you read this book a long time ago like me, you can get the highlights by asking it for a summary this way. So there are a lot of different use cases for using these summaries, but we can take this one step further. What if we want to get a specific summary of a chapter inside of a book? Let me give you another example for that use case. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me a summary of chapter 3 of the book Atomic Habits, and it actually is able to go in and give me a summary of that specific chapter. Now, this is something that does have some issues here and there, doesn't always work, but a lot of the time it could go into a chapter specific level and give you a summary of those materials that are in that chapter instead of the whole book. I don't know about you, but when I first saw this chapter summary feature, I was really blown away. There are a lot of times where I just want to go back and remember one specific chapter that I read without having to read through the entire book to find it. This is a really quick and efficient way of researching books on a chapter by chapter basis. Moving right along, the next way we can use ChatGPT to improve our reading skills is by using it as a tool for finding new books to read. This is my personal favorite way of using this AI tool, and honestly, finding the right book is usually the most important thing when it comes to building a reading habit. If you have a really good book that you like, you are more likely to actually read. Now, the best way to use this tool is by asking it a specific question and be as specific as possible. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT right now to give me some book recommendations about being a YouTuber and content creation. That's a very niche topic, and when I enter in that question, it actually comes back with several different books, a lot of which I've never even heard of before, and you can do this for almost any topic you can think of. Normally, finding books like this is not easy. If you do a Google search for a certain type of book topic, you're going to go to different websites and blogs and have to scroll through all those lists of books that you find. But with ChatGPT, it gives you a very quick and condensed summary of those suggestions all in one place, and they're actually really good suggestions. Now, say for example, you already have a book that you really enjoyed reading and you want to read more books that are similar to that book. You can ask ChatGPT that question as well. I'm going to use the example of Full Metal Alchemist over here, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to find alternative books that are similar to that, and I get a ton of recommendations again that are very similar in genre and themes. This is a great research tool for finding books that you're actually going to enjoy reading. Now, here is another example of a way you can find books that you might enjoy. Say you find an author that you really love their writing style and you want to read other books that they've written. You can also ask ChatGPT to give you a list of every book a certain author has written. Let's do this for the author Seth Godin, and when you enter in this question, we get a list of almost every book he's written. This guy's written a lot of books, so there's quite a lot of them, but it's a really quick way of finding all these books without having to research them on Wikipedia or Amazon. This is a really quick and natural way of asking a question. Now, what takes this to the next level is we can even ask a follow-up question. We can ask ChatGPT to give us the articles that Seth Godin is known for. So he writes a lot of books, but he also writes articles that are published on the internet, and you can actually ask these follow-up questions and get the most popular articles he's written as a follow-up response, which is really cool. A lot of the times for nonfiction authors, there'll be articles and blogs that they've written before, which are just as amazing as the books themselves. So this is a great way of finding that material too. Now, the third way to use ChatGPT is for using it to improve our comprehension. And what I love to do is after I finish reading a book, I like to review my highlights in my notes to see what things stood out to me, but I never actually go back and answer any questions to really improve my retention. Highlights or notes are a great starting point, but the best way to improve your comprehension is by actually quizzing yourself on specific questions about the book. Now, no one's got time to actually go in and research questions. If you want to do that, more power to you. But if I had a quick way of doing this, I would probably do it more often. And now with ChatGPT, it is so quick to generate questions on a book basis or even a chapter by chapter basis. Let me show you an example. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me some comprehension questions for the book 5 Love Languages. When I ask ChatGPT to do this, I get a list of tons of questions here that are really testing my comprehension of the book. This is a much more meaningful way to improve the retention that we have of the knowledge that we learned inside of a book. It's a really great way to improve your understanding of the material that you're reading. And again, you can do this on a book by book basis or even a chapter by chapter basis. Now, if answering comprehension questions is not your vibe, that is okay. Another way we can use ChatGPT is for vocab flashcards. Now, obviously, it's not going to go out and make actual flashcards for you, but if you want to just test your knowledge on specific terminology that you learned in a book, this is a great way to do that. Here's another example. Last year, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and inside of that book, I learned a lot of new terms in the world of personal finance, and I asked ChatGPT to generate some vocab flashcards for me based on this book, and I got a list of tons of words that are very specific to the things that we learn in that book, and it's really, really accurate. Now, the 2 examples that I gave so far are obviously for nonfiction books, but if you're a fiction reader, this is just as useful. Say there's something that happened inside of a book that you just don't understand and you need more information on. Let's say, for example, you're reading Game of Thrones. You don't quite understand the significance of the dire wolf that they talk about in the first book. We can ask ChatGPT to tell us what this dire wolf symbolizes, and it'll give us a very great description of what it means, some context around it, and why it's important. Better yet, if you read a fiction book and you're just really confused of all the different plot lines and different character development and things like that, we can ask very specific questions around that too. So again, Game of Thrones is a very confusing book series. If you want to get more clarity around the different plot lines, we can just ask ChatGPT for a clarification on the plot of Game of Thrones. And when you do this, it literally goes through every single plot inside the book and all the subplots and gives you a description of what's going on. Now, we are just scratching the surface with all this stuff. If you want to learn more about using ChatGPT to become a better bookworm, check out the book I just published. It's a really short read. It'll take 30 minutes to read the entire thing, and it's packed with more examples of specific questions you can ask to get better results for your reading. And if you enjoyed watching this video, I want to recommend my other video where I review every single book I read last year in 2022. Link for that on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.